Slope-Intercept Form. So here's what I need you to remember from today. You ready?
Whoa, why are you already so big?
Because you have to remember it, Christopher.
Oh my.
When your teacher writes something extra big, it's important.
Wow, thank you.
There's your translation of that. So, couple things I want you to notice about slope-intercept form. First off, it is called slope-intercept form because it includes a slope and an intercept, specifically a Y-intercept. This is actually the easiest form to graph a line from. Notice the slope is pointing to the letter M, not the letter X. X is not a part of the slope. Okay? So if I look at this equation right here and I ask you for the slope, I expect to see M equals. By the way, do you know why we use the letter M?
No.
It's from the French word for mountain.
Mountain?
Yeah, something like that. So what would I say the slope is here? It is 5. It is not 5x. Capiche?
Yes.
And B is our y-intercept. What's our y-intercept in this case? 7. What about number 2? What is my slope? And remember, 1/3 is the same as what we were doing before, where it's rise over run. So don't be afraid of these fractions here. It's actually easier when they're fractions. And what's my y-intercept here? -8. Okay. Number 3, what's my slope?
-4.
What is my y-intercept? 0. X is never your y-intercept. How can X be a y-intercept? It's X. Number 4, what is my slope?
-5.
0. 1.
What is my y-intercept? -5. Too much talking going on while I'm teaching, please. It's disrespectful. I don't appreciate that. Something else you should notice about slope-intercept form is y is by itself. So if you have an equation that is not in slope-intercept form, it's fairly reasonable to put it in y-intercept form by getting y by itself. Understand?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're going to graph some lines. These lines go really, 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 really fast. Now, yesterday I talked about using a ruler or something, or about how your ID card was the perfect thing to draw a straight line. So you might want to have a ruler or ID card or something. Okay. Okay. So, first thing we do is we identify the slope and the y-intercept. So in number 5, what is my slope? 2. What is my y-intercept? 4. Which one do I start with? Do you know? I start with the one that comes first alphabetically. What comes first alphabetically? M or B? B. Always start with your y-intercept. Okay? So my y-intercept has to be plotted on my y-axis. You cannot plot your y-intercept on your x-axis. So your y-axis, if you forget, it's usually labeled. There's a teeny tiny little y there reminding you that this is your y-axis. So find +4 on your y-axis and put a little point. There's my point. So?
Yes.
Now I take my slope. I want to have my slope written in rise over run form, which means I want it written as a fraction. How do I make the number 2 into a fraction? 2 over 1. So in other words, my rise is 2 and my run is 1. If my rise is 2, what direction does that tell me to go? Up. So from my y-intercept, I'm going to go up 2, and then where am I going to go? I'm going to run 1 to the right, and I'm going to plot another point. One more time, rise 2 over 1. When you plot a graph, I should see 3 points there. You do not need to circle them or anything, but I should be able to follow 3 points there, and then get your ruler and draw your line through. Now, why do I say draw your line through? Well, let me show you something real quick. If I, oh, where's my pencil? Somebody borrowed it and didn't return it. I need my pencil. Hold please. This is why I don't like loaning out pencils, so they don't come back.
I gave you mine back, remember?
I didn't say it was you. The reason why I suggest using a ruler and being specific is if I happen to draw this line even slightly different, this kind of looks like it goes through those points, doesn't it? Yeah. But as you get further away, look at how different that line is. It really is different. And when you're graphing by hand, those differences can make a much bigger difference even than this, because I was still using a ruler. So it's important to be kind of cautious as you're graphing and not just hand draw in something. I don't want to see crappy lines that are hand drawn in. Okay? You must use a straight edge of some kind. Okay? I do not want to see free-handed lines. Understand? Good answer. All right, number 6. What is my slope? 2 over 3. So it's already in the rise over run form. What is my y-intercept? -1. And which one do I start with? -1 on the y-axis. Find -1 on your y-axis and draw a point. Now, my rise is positive, which means what direction? Up. My run is also positive, which means what? Right. So I'm going to go up 2 and right 1, 2, 3, and there's my next point. And then I go one more time, up 2, right 3, and there's my next point. Get your straight edge and draw your line. By the way, when you are graphing things, we know that the arrows mean it goes on forever and ever, right? Okay, but I should not see a graph that looks like this. Here's dot, 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 and I'm going to graph my line like that. I shouldn't see that. Okay? I should see your line extend all the way to the edge of the graph I've given to you on both sides and the arrows at the end. Okay? Don't give me a little shrinky-dink line. It's hard for me to see stuff then. Okay? Not to mention, that's not technically a line. It's called a line segment, which is something different that we'll learn about second semester. All right, number 7, what is my slope? -5. What would that be in rise over run form? -5 over what? -1 or +1? +1. Because if I put it under over -1, doesn't a negative over a negative make a positive? So I can't have 2 negatives. It has to be over a +1. What is my y-intercept? +8. So on my y-axis, I'm going to find +8, and I'm going to plot a point. From there, what do I do? Down 5, right 1. Down 5 again, and right 1. Get your straight edge, draw your line. Again, draw it all the way to the edges of the graph I have provided you. Okay? All right, you ready for number 8? See, if I give you the graphs, these take 2 seconds to graph. They really do. So let's see, what's my slope here? -4/5. Does that negative sign go with the 4 or with the 5? Or with both? It can't go with both because a negative over a negative is a positive. We just talked about that. It actually doesn't matter which one you put it with, the 4 or the 5. It is easiest if you just always do the same thing, which I always tend to knock it to the top. So I always call it -4 over +5. If you put it +4 over -5, that would just mean that you are going up and then left instead of right. I always have it affect my rise. What is my y-intercept? 6. Okay, so what do I start with?
6.
6 on the y-axis, so that's up here. And from there, where am I going to go? Down 4, and then what? Right 5. 2, 4, 5. I think I can go one more time. And then use your straight edge to draw in your line. And don't forget your arrows at the end. Capiche? Can you do 9 and 10?
Yes.
Try it. All right, what's my slope here? -1. Where do I put the -1? Top. What's my y-intercept? So I find 3 on my y-axis, and then how am I going to travel? Down 1, right 1? Down 1, right 1. Right? Your slope is -1, so you write it as -1 over 1. All right, what's my slope here? 5 over 3. What's my y-intercept here? 0. So 0 on my y-axis is right there at the origin. And from there, where am I going to go? Up 5 over 3. And then up 5 over 3. Again, how many points do I want to see? 3. Draw your line. And that's what we have. So? Okay, let's go to the next page. The next page is special cases of lines. There are some times, if you look at these graphs down here, where you only have one letter. It's missing an X or it's missing a Y. Those lines are either vertical or horizontal. What direction does vertical go? Up and down. What direction does horizontal go? So, the equation x equals 5, what letter is this missing? It's missing y, isn't it? Which means this crosses through the x-axis. In other words, it is a vertical line. It means the equation of that line goes through the x-axis at 5. A vertical line would go through the x-axis, not a horizontal line. The equation y equals 2, it's missing the letter x, which means it's not going to cross through the x-axis. It's going to cross through the y-axis at 2. It is a horizontal line. If there is only one variable in the equation, it means the line is either vertical, meaning it has an undefined slope. I think my pen's dying. That's a really cruddy color. How about this guy? Undefined slope, or it's horizontal, which means it has a 0 slope. Okay, The slope of all horizontal lines is 0. So in other words, your rise over your run is 0 over something. And we don't really count it as that. We just recognize it as horizontal or vertical. The slope of all vertical lines is undefined. So, line like this, 0. Line like this, undefined. Every other line has a number that you can write as a rise over run. Okay? So we're only talking about 2 cases, vertical and horizontal. Okay? So let's graph these guys. So x equals 3. Well, where is my x-axis and 3? Well, my x-axis is here, and 3 on my x-axis is right there. X equals 3 chops my x-axis at 3. So that's what my graph looks like. It's cutting through my x-axis at 3. Can I get a better pen for this? Maybe this guy. Does that make sense? Because every point on this line is the point 3 comma something. They all have x values of 3. Y equals -1. Well, I'm going to go to my y-axis. I'm going to find -1, and it's going to chop through my y-axis at -1, which means it's going to be horizontal. Yeah? Y equals 6, vertical or horizontal? Horizontal. So I go find 6, 2, 4, 6, and I draw my horizontal line. Okay? X equals -2, vertical or horizontal?
Vertical.
So I go find -2 on my x-axis, and I draw the vertical line. Notice I don't need the 3 points on these ones, because you're not counting a rise and a run. I just need the 1 point that shows me where it's intercepting or intersecting the axis. Y equals 1/2, vertical or horizontal? Horizontal. So I find where y equals 1/2, which is right about there, right? Halfway between 0 and 1. And I draw my horizontal line. And the last one, vertical or horizontal? So at -4, I put a point, and I draw my vertical line through. So, what did we just do? We just graphed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 graphs in less than 20 minutes. These graphs go very, very fast. Okay? There shouldn't be any whining about graphing because it's not difficult and it goes very fast. Okay? All right, your homework I'm going to pass out. It's also posted on Google Classroom, but I'm going to pass it out for you. Your homework is practicing graphing lines in this y equals mx plus b slope-intercept form. Okay? Happy studying.